The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by Record Rack Deer and Elk Feeds. As a deer hunter, I want to know all I can about America's favorite big game animal. That's why I became a deer farmer. Without deer farms, we lose our greatest resource for research and whitetail management. With them, we gain more knowledge than ever before. Join me as we discover the truth about whitetails and meet those who work every day to preserve this great species for future generations. My name is Keith Warren, and this is Deer and Wildlife Stories. Hey everybody, welcome to the show and to the great state of Ohio, where today we're at Double H Whitetails.
I'm Ivan Hochstetler. The name of the deer farm is Double H Whitetail, and we're located in Wayne County, Ohio, just a mile south of Mount Eaton and about an hour south of Cleveland.
Yeah, this place is packed. I've made some great friends in this industry, and those of you that I have not met yet, you're my friends that I don't know yet. Less than 10 years ago, this land was just pasture land. But today, thanks to the hard work of the Hochstetler family, this pasture land has been transformed into one of the most beautiful deer farms in the entire state of Ohio. This farm is also raising some of Ohio's biggest whitetails, and it truly is a show place for others interested in the deer farming industry to stand up and notice. It's late July, and even though the bucks have a full month of growing left to do, I've stopped by for a visit.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you again this morning for a beautiful morning. Thank you for the rain last night. Thank you for Keith and Kent for coming.
Let me tell you about the Hochstetler family. Yes, Double H Whitetails has impressive deer, but what impresses me more than their deer is the family themselves. I'm honored to call the Hochstetlers my friends, and the deer farming community is blessed to have such a great example for others to follow.
Although this is a family farm, the most important person is my wife, Ruby. She's the rock behind this whole thing. Some people know her as Mama Deer. She gets calls from Wisconsin, Indiana, even some from Canada calling her, hey, what do you do if I have a deer with this sickness? And without Ruby, there wouldn't be no deer farm.
I'm Ruby Hochstetler, and this is our little ranch, I guess. And I actually grew up just a little bit up the road here. My dad graciously gave us the land where we have our farm on. Our two sons are full-time employed at the ranch here. Keith Warren is one amazing guy. I'll never forget when we first watched his show on television. And I just love watching these shows. And then one day, I was up at the shop where Ivan has his pallet shop, and my brother-in-law was saying that he's got Keith Warren on the phone. I said, you are so totally joking me. And he said, no, you got Keith Warren on the phone. I said, seriously, stop joking. And here I actually got to talk with Keith Warren on the phone, and I thought I was the happiest woman in the whole world. He's just a really dear friend of ours, and we really like Keith and what all he does to the industry.
Yeah, I encourage anybody in Ohio or anybody in the Midwest for that matter, if you're within driving range, come over here because you're going to see some incredible animals. The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by New Dart, leading the industry in accuracy. Blackwater over there.
We started started off as approximately 160 adult deer, and then we had 72 fawns, so we're up to 30 total deer.
All right, looks like a bunch of yearlings in here. All except for the man right there. Boy, I know who that is. Whoo, baby. That's Blackwater, huh?
Blackwater.
At 2.
2 years old, yeah. This year's 2. Yeah, Blackwater last year scored 202 mainframe at a 6x7 frame, and gross was in the high 230s.
Well, Blackwater actually won an award at the Deer Breeders Corporation down in Texas last year, right?
He did, actually. We entered in the DBC Golden Buck Awards, and he won first place out of state typical. We bred him to some really good does, so we're anxious to see what the offspring's.
You've got babies on the ground.
We got babies on the ground, you know, and a buck is, their value is on their offsprings.
Right. And so you don't really know what
you
he's
don't know, you know what he's producing
until next year. But folks, this show is going to run. Keep in mind this show is right now the end of July. So as you're looking at Blackwater and Express Line, all these other bucks we're showing you today, these bucks have got another several weeks to grow. So they're not done. Okay, but next year when this show runs, it'll run the first, second quarter next year. If you want to come out on a farm tour, you want to see the offspring of any of these breeders, all you need to do is just come and they'll be happy to show you. But you've got babies on the ground out of him right now.
Yes, we do.
Wow. Ivan, I have watched y'all's farm go from where you didn't have very many deer to where now you've got added pens and you've got a lot of deer and you've got a lot of great deer. I gotta ask you, besides the obvious, what is your number one goal here?
Number one goal is just raise big, pretty deer. You know, we started out as a hobby. It wasn't long we were in it. We knew we had to make a decision, either keep it as a hobby or, you know, get serious and play the market and, you know, make so it's profitable, and we're on our way.
No, you're on your way. In other words, you took a hobby, you took an interest, and it's an enterprise. It's a business now.
Right.
You have a business plan, and clearly your business plan is to grow the biggest, prettiest deer that you can. And I would think also to help as many people behind you to come in and help them grow deer too.
Yeah.
On every farm we have the special buck on everybody's farm.
Right now, our favorite deer is probably Timber Crown, just because he was born here, and every year he just consistently has that look.
I think he's just one of the prettiest bucks and the graceful looking bucks. He's got this real dark coat and he holds his head like none other. I love him.
But there's something about that deer, being non-typical, the way he carries that rack is just a testament to his body strength.
We had this one little fawn years ago that he was born, and he was actually, I think, a triplet, and his front foot was bent so far that there was no way he could even walk or stand even to nurse on the moms.
Well, when he was little, we got some great footage of him, and I can remember looking at him, and he looked just terrible. I mean, it was like, you know, I remember seeing at the time that if that deer was born out in the wild, he would never, ever live.
Oh no, Ruby, she did a wonderful job. You know, she had him on her lap every feeding, just stretch and stretch.
We got it stretched enough that we could put a little splint on, and it's been years now, and he's got a rack just about as big as some of our biggest bucks we got out there.
Okay, so who's the other big guy in here with him?
That is Tall Boy.
And how old's he?
Tall Boy's 5 this year. He is out of the same sire as Bentley, which is Triple Crown. Triple Crown was our first breeder that we had here.
And these other guys were yearlings, huh?
Yearlings, yeah.
I mean, those are nice yearlings, but even though they may not be the biggest yearlings, they could be the biggest 2-year-old on the farm next year.
Yeah.
You've got some outstanding deer, say, on your low end. I'd like to know, and I'm sure viewers would like to know, entry-level price. If somebody wanted to buy your lower end deer that are great pedigreed, but in your farm, they're your lower end deer, how much, say, would be a bred doe? How much would it cost?
Usually, $2,000 is the lowest end.
That's bred?
And it's bred, and it depends on, you know, hey, if multiple deer, how many deer, you know, we cut you a deal, but $2,000 is kind of the lowest.
Folks, that is phenomenal. What you need to realize is that if you can produce a big, giant deer in the deer industry, They're worth, I mean, some guys are getting $1 million for these big deer. They're worth $1 million if you can produce a big giant. For $2,000, somebody buys a bred doe, okay, off your farm. Would it come with a DNA profile?
Oh yeah, all our deer are DNA.
So everyone is in the registry. And folks, if you're gonna buy a deer, I would recommend, if you're gonna get in the deer business, please do yourself a favor and deal with deer that are in the North American Deer Registry. It is the North American Deer Registry that keeps honest people honest, is what I say. Okay, you wanna know what you're buying, and every one of the deer on this deer farm and the deer farms that we go to that we feature on Deer and Wildlife Stories, every one of the deer are in the North American Deer Registry. And the reason why, because it assures you, the buyer, that you're getting what you're supposed to be. The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by Record Rack Deer and Elk Feeds. Now that Ivan and his family have been deer farming for 7 years, I asked him what were some of the important things that he learned.
I didn't realize that the industry is so helpful to, to share their experiences. And there's always something to tend to here. A week ago, we had a buck that had pneumonia, and we knocked him down and treated him real well.
Got him. After we medicate a buck like that, about 5 days afterwards, we like to give a booster shot, kind of a medication just to help get him completely over the pneumonia or whatever it may be. So that's basically what we just did there.
We have a number of doe fawns on the bottle. And the reason why we pull them, the bottle feed, one is the first couple months is the most important for deer, any deer, is to keep them healthy, because they're building their immune system up. And so if you're bottle feeding and you got hands-on, if there's something wrong with them, you can pick it up right away.
Growing big trophy deer, whether it's on a deer farm like this or whether it's out in the pasture, requires 3 things in order for it to happen. Just like a stool would require 3 legs to stand up. Well, growing big trophy deer has 3 things in order to stand up. Okay, and that is age, nutrition, and genetics. Well, age is something that is determined basically because, well, if you pull the trigger or not, you've got to let the animals get old. So the 2 things that we focus on are genetics and nutrition. So I asked Ivan, what are his thoughts as far as genetics and nutrition go?
Nutrition is very important. It's probably, genetics is probably the most important to us, and then your nutrition is second. We mix our feed every day, so they got fresh feed daily.
And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said to try Record Rack, and so we did, and we've been on it ever since, and we're real happy with it. And we don't take that, no shortcuts in our nutrition. We feed the best that we can get our hands on. Shock Effect it's a all natural nutritional supplement. The way we mix it in is a tumbler that we put our textured feed in, and then we just take 2 scoops per buck or per head of deer. It's showing up in the pens, nice antlers. We have less broken tines. The antlers are harder.
Here's a question for you. What percentage do you think that the doe plays in making a great big trophy buck? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, what percentage? Well, I asked Ivan, and here's what he had to say.
Really, the doe is, in our way of thinking, is the doe is 70%, maybe higher. The reason of raising nice deer. So you have to start with a good, solid doe in order to raise the kind of bucks that you want.
Every week on the program, you hear us talking about how important pedigrees are to deer farmers. And that's the reason why we rely on the information that we get from the North American Deer Registry. Most deer farmers really rely on the North American Deer Registry as kind of the Bible, if you will, about how to base the value of animals. So I asked Ivan if he had an opportunity to buy the biggest deer on earth and it didn't have a pedigree, would he?
All our deer are DNA registered with North American Deer Registry, and we don't buy a deer or even look at buying a deer that is not registered.
when the show returns.
Today's a big day here at H Whitetail. It's our 3rd annual open house.
Yeah, this place is packed.
Whitetail Deer Farmers of Ohio really appreciates Ivan Hochstetler putting this event on for us.
The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by New Dart, leading the industry in accuracy.
Today's a big day here at H Whitetail. It's our 3rd annual open house. We have people coming out from multiple states, North Dakota, Wisconsin, some people from Texas. The reason we do it is we like to give back to the industry. It's the day before the Ohio Trophy and Breeders' Auction. There's going to be a lot of non-deer farmers here just to get them exposed to deer farming and what we do. And it's just going to be a lot of people. Last year we had approximately 400. This year we're prepared for 700. We're giving away some awesome door prizes, and we tapped a lot of our friends in the industry on the shoulder asking for donations just for door prizes. Market value on this stuff that has been donated by fellow deer farmers, it's north of $30,000 to $35,000 worth of door prizes we're giving away. Just an appreciation. Everybody loves the industry and the most generous people on the face of the earth. Some of the things that we're going to be doing here today on our open house is farm tours. Then we got free food. We're going to have a hog roast, some good old Johnny Cash music by John Schmidt.
I'm Kurt Waldvogel. I've been deer farming nearly 30 years, and I've been deer farming in Ohio since 2006. Today we're at Ivan Hochstetler's open house. He puts this on annually. Whitetail Deer Farmers of Ohio is a compilation of deer farmers that raise whitetail deer in the state of Ohio. Our main focus is fair regulation. We're very active legislatively and with the regulators in the state of Ohio and the USDA level. We just try to make sure that our rights are not infringed upon and we have fair regulation.
Deer farming is very important to the rural agriculture here in Ohio as it creates lots of jobs, you know, in the local feed mills, veterinary clinics, supports your local supermarkets.
I'm Dr. Shane Donnelly. I'm one of the owners of the Sugar Creek Veterinary Clinic in Sugar Creek, Ohio. Deer farming is big business in Ohio. It's vital to the local economy, brings tons of jobs here. It's vitally important to our clinic as a small business. The deer on deer farms are very healthy animals. We make sure of that.
All right, we're all huddled up underneath this tent like a bunch of wet rats. I mean, it is flat pouring down rain. And although this is a private event at H Whitetails, tomorrow and the next day, the Whitetail Deer Farmers of Ohio are going to have their annual sale. And so this precedes the annual sale, kind of gets everybody excited. And Ivan has a chance to show off the deer on his place, and everybody right now is trying to keep them getting too wet. All right, so what did y'all go do? You came here a little while ago and introduced me to your wife, and y'all took off. Tell me what you did.
Then we jumped in the cart. I'm in the market of looking for a breeder buck, and he rolled up the Rockstar treatment and gave me the Rockstar tour, and I went and saw 2 or 3 pins of some of the biggest bucks I've ever seen today.
They're unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And so you wound up buying one?
Wound up buying one. Yeah, bought a real nice yearling. So
You got a good one. If it came from here, you got a good one.
It's the biggest one in the pen. So
Good deal.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
All right, Jerry from Iowa sends actually a snail mail. Says, Keith, your Deer and Wildlife Story show is my favorite on the network. I'm an avid deer hunter, and I can't get enough information about what's going on in the deer farming world. Tell me, if you would, how do I sign up for the Win a Deer Farm sweepstakes? I would love to become a deer farmer someday. Jerry, it's easy to do. Go to winadeerfarm.com. And folks, if you're not aware of what's going on, thanks to Record Rec Deer Feeds, we're setting somebody up as a deer farmer. Go to winadeerfarm.com and register today. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, shoot me an email and I promise you, I'll get right back with you. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Keith Warren, and thanks for watching Deer and Wildlife Stories. Closed captioning is brought to you by 7 Seas Whitetails.